Now, I've actually been intrigued by helmet designs for a long time, and especially how recently they've been changing more and more. How drivers change them from season to season, and sometimes even race to race. Throw in a few special edition helmets throughout the season, why not? Now, it could be because I'm an old fuddy-duddy now who's watched Formula One since the 90s. But something that's interesting and something that's well worth looking at right now is, do F1 drivers' helmets mean anything anymore? Because drivers nowadays seem to change their helmet designs all the time, whether that's each year, maybe even a few updates over the season, or maybe even race to race. And most of the current crop do look great. They are very spectacular to look at, don't get me wrong. But compared to some of the iconic and even average designs that we've seen in the past few decades that you can instantly pick out, I wonder if the current crop of helmet designs have the same impact and importance and even meaning, not just to the driver that's wearing it, but also to the fans as well. Historically, though, a driver can be summed up and remembered with a single helmet design. And straight away, names like Ayrton Senna, Nigel Mansell, Graham and Damon Hill, Gilles Villeneuve, and James Hunt come to mind. One iconic design that you can pick out almost instantaneously. They had it their whole career, it means a lot to them, it is just iconic. Whereas nowadays, this doesn't seem to be the case. Take someone like Lewis Hamilton, who's been in the sport since 2007 and has changed and evolved his helmet design almost continuously. So if you had to pick one design to showcase and represent Hamilton, which one would you choose? Which is the design that you would go for? And this isn't just Hamilton, by the way. It goes for the whole range of drivers that we have in F1 at the moment, because they all pick and switch and change their design so much. Helmet designs now seem to change so often, and because they look so generic and busy and complicated, I think there's a sense that they lose their individuality. Rarely do drivers pick a general theme nowadays, but if they do, it's continuously added to, adjusted, and just made more and more complicated. And like I said earlier, more and more generic. So I really wonder, with the current range of helmet designs out there right now, is more actually less? The busier and more complicated the helmet design, the less impactful and iconic the result actually is. Which raises another question: do they even have the same meaning or even importance as before? Now, obviously, they mean something to the driver, because in their eyes, this is a huge part of their whole identity, and this is part of what their whole brand rests on. But as well, you've got to roll with the times, and if that's the way of doing things now, then yeah, that's just the case. But it also seems like a bit of a shame. But what I'm talking about here is what the helmet designs mean for us, the fans, and also to the driver's legacy, which is in part upheld by the fans. But compared to the helmet designs that we've seen in previous decades, I sense that there's something lacking, and this could also be for several reasons. And one is that we haven't had the same longevity or even exposure to the likes of Lando Norris or Charles Leclerc and so on. So it might take a little bit longer for their helmet designs to really set in and stew in our minds. And second is that the driver's head is now buried inside the cockpit and surrounded by a halo bar, which means that you actually struggle to see the helmet design even from side on. Unlike before, when the head was completely exposed and even the driver's shoulders were sticking out from the cockpit. And so with that, you got a great view of the design from pretty much any angle. And third is that as the seasons go by and things like social media, branding and image get more and more important, there's just a huge pressure to constantly reinvent and relaunch and evolve. And this goes for helmet designs, image, all of that stuff. After all, this is Formula One. Money has to be made. But even still, some of those older designs are timeless classics. Some are just elegantly simple and they have become art in their own right. With those ones, less truly is more. Now, this excellent quote I heard, I can't remember where I heard it from, but it was definitely a driver that said it. And it was that if a school kid can't draw your helmet design in the back of his maths book at school, then yours is a crap helmet design. I have a feeling it may have been David Coulthard, but I'm not so sure. But to me, though, that sounds like an excellent summary of how a helmet design should be. Because to draw most of them now, you need to be a graphic designer with years of experience under your belt. So whilst they are visually impressive and amazing to look at with all their little intricacies and details, when it comes to actually making you feel something, though, that's when I think they start to fall flat. It's like when I see Ayrton Senna's helmet design, I see intensity and a never give up attitude, but also tragedy as well. When I see Nigel Mansell's, I see strength and perseverance. With Alain Prost's, I see intelligence, calculation, and playing the game to win. And with James Hunt, you see a partying, hard racing rule breaker. Now, of course, some of these helmet designs have had over 40 or 50 years to stew in our brains and make an impact. So maybe it is a bit unfair to compare these iconic helmets to the range of what the current drivers have. In fact, let me know in the comments if a current driver's helmet design makes you feel something, or if you see something about the driver's personality in that design. I'd be very interested to hear what you guys say. So the whole helmet design thing, which started with sticking with a general theme, maybe put in some slight tweaks for your career, and this then changed into continuously changing the helmet design by what seems race to race. This thing must have started somewhere. Someone must have opened Pandora's box. Now, do let me know what you think in the comments about this, but if I had to point the finger at anyone to do with this whole helmet design thing, it would have to be Sebastian Vettel and also Red Bull to an extent. And it is because of this. And it goes back to when Red Bull first became a team, and they still even do this today. Red Bull seem to do this thing where they have their logo appear on the side of each of their drivers' helmet designs. And this doesn't matter if you're Max Verstappen, Sebastian Vettel, Mark Webber or Pierre Gasly, they all have this logo on the side, which means that the only area that the driver has left to play with creatively is the collar around the bottom and then the halo bit around the top. Doesn't quite seem enough, does it? And this is where I think Sebastian Vettel comes into play. So throughout Seb's career, in my opinion, he used too many designs. Way too many. Nobody really knows how many. It's a stat that's been lost in time. So if my memory serves me, Vettel used to do this thing where if he won a Grand Prix, he would then retire that helmet design. Let me know in the comments if I'm making any sense there. And considering he won a lot of races during a stint with Red Bull, he was going through helmets like hotcakes. So with Seb continuously creating new designs, flipping things around, showing what's possible with graphic design, other drivers on the grid must have thought, wow, I didn't know you could do that. Now, of course, I'm not going to produce for you a big stat on drivers and how many helmet changes they've had throughout their careers. I don't have the time and I can't be bothered. But to me, it just feels like this change started to happen during Vettel's stint at Red Bull. Now, of course, other drivers did special one-offs or changed their helmet entirely prior to Vettel, and some of them are actually quite memorable, but I think it was himself who took it a bit overboard. The cat was now out of the helmet bag. Meanwhile, to the current crop of drivers that we have today, who are now impressionable go-karting youths back then, this became the standard. It was trendy, it was cool. And the design of your helmet became something to wow and shock and impress people with again and again and again and again. So in my opinion, it's just down to a changing of the times and an evolution of what is deemed as important in Formula One. As drivers have now become marketable brands in themselves, most feature their individual race number and initials on the helmets, which was never a thing before. And as we are now in the time of clicks and impressions where content is king, the need to constantly do something new and invent and evolve is more than ever. Tradition seems to be something that F1 is becoming less and less interested in. And that tradition was back in the day that an F1 driver's helmet design was his war paint, his flag. It represented something that was important to them, and it was theirs alone, and no one else can touch it. Can you just imagine the look on Ayrton Senna's face if he was told that he had to have a massive Red Bull logo on the side, or if he was told that they had to paint his entire helmet pink because they now have a BWT sponsorship? He just wouldn't have it. Also, the majority of the design's colour schemes were based around the driver's nationality and the country's flag. As that becomes less of a thing in Formula One, the colours are more based around the driver's interests and personality and preferences. But the flip side of that is that these are things which seem to change continuously. And so with the rest of the season still ahead of us, no doubt we're going to see the usual slosh of special helmet designs for certain races, and it will be all over social media and publicised by the team and the driver. So right away, that is possibly already the new purpose. And with all the driver moves ahead of us, no doubt we're going to see a new crop of helmet designs next year anyway. Especially when Hamilton moves over to Ferrari, he absolutely won't miss the chance to do something new. So to try and finally answer the question, do drivers' helmets actually mean anything anymore? I think it's a yes and a no. They still mean something, but what that meaning is massively different to what it was before. Yes, it still means something to the driver and the team and the marketing department. It's an asset, it's a marketing tool that they can also use. But to the fans, and I'm speaking of my own opinion here, I would say no. They mean far, far less than what they used to. I think despite everything going on, I think the fans still like tradition and they like unique, iconic, identifiable helmets for their drivers. But maybe it's all down to trends, and to kick off a new one, perhaps someone needs to step out of line and create a clean, basic and iconic design. If it's going to happen or who it's going to be, we'll just have to wait and see. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Do let me know in the comments if there's a particular helmet design from the past that stands out to you, or even if any of the current drivers truly stand out and that you like. Anyway, as always, I'm Paul, and thanks again for watching.